I will be very, very quick to leave the word to the others who will tell us about the more interesting parts. But just as a to say something about another work package in the project that I'm leading, which is work package 5. So you've heard already from some work packages or sub-projects that are digging deep into specific cases. Let's say we heard about this Mickey toy wagon, whatever it's called, and so forth. And this work package is more, let's say, horizontal, to try to pick up on the technology aspects of how to make this happen. We also heard from Laura about these standards that are coming. So this work package is really about monitoring what is going on, how are people implementing this within the project and beyond the project, and with a specific eye also on the interoperability, the semantic interoperability. So how do we know we speak the same language? And this work package really looks at existing standards and data sharing infrastructures and so forth. How are they used to implement this in practice, to connect your systems in your company to be able to produce a DPP, for example, and so forth. And then we look specifically at this interoperability aspect. So let's say we are looking at ontologies, for example, to describe the data so that we can map between different standards and so forth for the content, let's say, of the information. And just as an illustration, I have this image. There are a few project logos on here, and that's definitely not all that could have been put here. It's just a few that I happen to throw in there, but the idea is to say that we have a lot of basic infrastructure already in place with all the different standards that are already there, the different systems that are available in the companies today, where you have a lot of data. As some of the previous speakers said, there is already a lot there. It's more about how do we collect that in a form that can be put into a DPP, or how do we interact with other systems to make this work. So there's a lot of work going on this middle layer here, let's say these platforms on one hand to describe the semantics, and there's the little onto the side logo, which was a project that I led, European project, where we looked a lot on ontologies for describing the information. Then there's other projects that look more on different kinds of platforms. We had it onto the side as well, but a lot of work is going on here, both on projects, and there's also a lot of companies who are probably here today a lot as well, that are developing these platforms for managing DPPs. And then on the top, we also see a lot of projects and ongoing efforts that have different demonstrators. We had some in the onto the side projects. There's a number of them in SwePass, more than what you'd see there actually, but just as an example. And how do you actually make all of these come together? So, and what can we learn from all of these different, let's say, demonstration cases together, and all of these different platforms that are emerging? And in the work package, we try to also look at the kind of the life cycle of a DPP. So it's not only about creating it in the first place, but maybe updating. We need to interact with it. DPPs relate to other DPPs. A part that is included in a product has maybe a DPP of its own, and so forth. So there's lots of these different aspects, but on the technical level, how do we connect all of this information, basically? And in the work package so far, we've had a number of webinars. The latest one was from a colleague of mine from the Onto the Side project, who presented the work that we did there of using open web standards to create a platform for data sharing. And we are going to have some future webinars as well. And if you are interested in some specific speaker, you can also tell me and suggest that we arrange a webinar around this. But basically, and if you want to join if you're in SwePass and you want to join the work package, feel free to also join our monthly meetings or contact me. But then moving to the next speaker, let's say, I had this image here of there is a lot of things going on, a lot of platforms being developed, and for different steps in this life cycle of the DPP, for instance. And in one of the other work packages, work package 7, which has a construction demonstrator, you know, all that in the built environment. I mean, we have a lot of products out there that don't have the DPPs. I think one of the previous speakers also mentioned it. So one part of it is also not just collecting data from that is in existing systems, but also collecting data and structuring data that is collected for existing products that we need to in order to maybe create DPPs in the future.
We are a 20-person company developing a product called Entryscape, open source licensed, and we are focused on metadata in a very general level, but we build everything according to linked data principles. So from the side of modeling and expressing things correctly, we can move over to collect or gather or aggregate data in several different scenarios. Mainly we work with public sectors using Entryscape for various purposes in public sector, and we have a sort of a tradition of bringing sort of directives and the legal stuff coming from the European Union that has let's say a very linked data approach to things and making use of that in public sectors. That's very, very quick about us. With me, I have Alex.
Yes, Alex Forsberg. I'm a senior information architect. So I mainly work with standardization, reusing standards from W3C, if it's vocabularies that are from the Semantic interoperability group from the European Commission. So trying to go around the landscape and reuse things when it makes sense. I think it's really interesting to look at the DPPs and all of the standards that already exist from before and see how we mainly could reuse things that are already done. So coming with the semantic web hat and seeing how we could reuse things within this project. I hope you can see our slides. I think so. So Entryscape is a family of multiple web applications that is open source. So we are trying to help mainly the public sector, as Eric mentioned, to describe structured metadata about different things. It could be data catalogs, data sets, it could be entities such as documents, it could be materials, different processes, etc. But we try to use the linked data approach all the time. Doing that, we also need to store the data in the proper format. So we have a backend that is called EntryStore, where we store information about these entities. It could be relations between them. It could be that we have some extra metadata, who's done something, updating information, etc., etc. So web applications for describing, collecting, and also validating information, storing the information in RDF. But then also we have some components that enriches the information that we have. We want to have templates, for example, if you want to describe a digital product passport with the standard behind it, it would be nice to have a template that is generated directly. So we have an open source library that is called RD Forms, but also presenting information in the end as well. If you describe a lot of information in the system, you also want to present it in a way that is interactive as well. So we have something that is called Entryscape blocks that is reusing the structured data from the beginning, which is this. So for us, we have a lot of different modules, but everything is coming from one direction in the beginning. It's if there's a standard, there's an ontology, for example, for a digital product passport, for a data catalog or something, we configure our system to be able to manage that information. It could be that you want to describe it from the beginning. It could be that you want to collect it, or you want to map the information from another format. So we come, I think in 99% of the cases, we come from the information modeling aspect. We see there's a standard, we want to apply it, maybe make some restrictions to it, and also generate tools around it. So collecting data autonomously, validating information, but also describing information from the beginning. There's a bit more in depth about the tech stack. Not going to go in detail on that, but everything we're doing is built on top of open source things from the beginning. There's also a link I could send afterwards where we document things as well. I'll just show some brief examples. Not going to be too long going here. So as mentioned before, we work a lot with standardization in Sweden. So I don't know if you've heard of it before, but we have a standard in Europe for describing data catalogs and datasets, which is a directive that is coming from the European Commission, which recommends a standard that should be used. Of course, there are prerequisites for different countries, right? In Sweden, maybe we have some specifics on which kind of themes we need for datasets, as a really rudimentary example, but it could be different applications we need to do. So if there's a recommendation from the European Commission, in this case, DKAP, we need to apply it in a Swedish context. So in this case, we as a company, we come in with expertise around semantics and metadata, and how to reuse standards so we don't invent something new, right? Because we will need to be compatible with other countries in the European Union for describing data sets and data catalogs. It could also be more specific, and I think this is also something that we want to contribute to in the project, is that we work a lot with different contexts within the public sector. So the last year we worked really closely with the Environmental Protection Agency in Sweden, and looking at one of the aspects that is a bit higher up, not the digital product passport, it's something that is supplementary in the future, I would say, but looking at how conditions and permits for environmentally hazardous activities could look when you do an information model around it. So I really liked the presentation from Aras before, where we looked at, for example, chemical entities, different compounds. You want to reference information using standardized identifiers, as an example, like the CAS number and things. So we don't want to invent something here. We want to reuse standards when it comes, for example, to units, chemical entities, etc., and apply them in a different context. What we're looking at is actually something that is automatically generated in accordance with the recommendation from the Commission, which is respec. So from doing an information model, this was a demo I did before, all of the relations is not here and the standard is not applied yet. So we're waiting for seeing when it's finished. It would be fun to actually do it. So doing a model describing shapes in this case, which could be the product passports, you have some element collections, some values, etc., connecting them, but also being able to generate the same kind of documentation as we're looking at here. So this, I think, will be really important in the future here, where we have the standards coming from SIS with the digital product passports, but also having the open documentation around it. So it will be easier for implementers to be able to reference, for example, a chemical entity, in this case, has an identifier, or units should be described with this instance of a class, for example. And if you've done it, you have a model, you can also produce information, import, collect, validate information in accordance with that. Of course, it's nice to also get the data in a structured format. So this is another context we're looking at, but as you see, it's stored, you can store it in different formats such as RDF JSON, RDF XML, JSON LD, etc., and tuples as well. But we see that all of the entities here are structured. You have a reference, there's some extra data around it. This is in the context of tourism, but there's also connections between different entities here. And I think this is one of the cases that are most important with the work that is doing in this project, is to, all right, how could we reuse identifiers for different things in the context of the digital product passport, right? Materials are already decided. It could be chemical entities, you have mass, etc. You have units, costs, etc., etc., etc. But it's also things that is, which I think Eva also mentioned here before, there's already a lot of existing standards for this. So try to apply it in a context, but also see how we could structure the information in this graph format, which is really important in the future. Yeah, that's it for us.